skills. She is with her extraordinary bilingual skills, she has organized and mobilized a team to bring workforce scholarship opportunities to the Hispanic Latino community with the support of the leadership team from Tri-County Community College. She supported and strengthened the creation of a cultural outreach committee at her local public library. With the support of local government, small-owned businesses, and local nonprofits within her community, Sarai pulled together a team that helped pave the pathway of collaboration effort to create and establish the City of Walhalla's first annual Hispanic Heritage Festival in 2022. Her true passion is simply sitting with people, connecting with them on a deeply human level to create spaces for healing and transformation. Sarai continues to strive for the balance that made her who she is and challenges the system for a fairer and more equitable South Carolina. All right, so that's who's speaking with us today. So I want to paint that full picture for you. So I just want to thank you for your commitment and selflessness to the community. I want to say that. Now, before our honored guest shares with us, I want you to mark your calendars for the last of this semester events. Of course, the fall will bring a whole new slate of events even after that. But on April 5th, we'll have Maria Morales from the Urban League. And then on April 12th, we'll have Dr. Laneika Musalini as she shares on how to thrive in college financially. All right, so without further ado, let's welcome Mrs. Sarai Melendez.
What an introduction. Thank you. I am very humbled and honored. We are going to pivot here because I like to be, as she stated, get to know people around here. So I would like to, if it's okay with everyone, kind of just move over here. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint, and I'm not going to bore you with some of that. I'm still learning, and I do want to share my story. So I'm just going to pivot over here, and if we can get, I know there's some, whatever their spaces. I know I've been coming around to nobody. I'm going to try to speak as loud as I can.
No. Just making sure the camera hits you. Camera's good? Okay.
Okay. Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You want to just slide this back just a here? I'm looking, it's.
My goal here is to learn.
Okay.
So just as much as I'm sharing my story. Yeah, is that fine?
Sit for 1 second. Let's go wherever you choose to sit on the couch.
Right here, but I'm gonna get my water because I did forget.
Will you test it out? Just sit where you think choose and sit. Let's see. Okay. See me? I do. Okay. So do you, where do you want them to be?
Right here is fine. I saw some students move. Thank
Okay.
you. And I know I was getting to know some of the students there. Is that okay for everybody in the back? Yeah? Okay. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm so happy and humbled and honored to be here. I know we have a virtual component too, with technology advancing so quickly. I feel like I'm in that digital gap as well. And that's why I'm always looking forward to innovative ideas as we move forward in the community. So as she stated, I did finish my first term with City Council that was 4 years, and I just entered my second term. My second term, I got sworn in this year on January 2nd. As you can see, I'm wearing different colors of yellow shades. My favorite color is yellow. And when I got sworn in on January 2nd, to enter 4 more years of serving the community and the constituent base that's back in Walhalla, I wore a yellow garment because that same day was going to be my grandmother's 92nd birthday, and she passed away about 2 years ago. So she was there on my first swearing in, and my second time she was there with me in the spirit. My grandmother, who really was the key to my upbringings, showed me a lot of resilience, and I'm going to share my story with those lens. But before we get started, I always like to get to know who's in the crowd. And I know virtually people are probably signed in and connection might go off and on. So far, as she was reading, I went around and just started getting to know who was in here. So I met Sam, Zoe, and Kiana, and some of the staff members as well. But I see new student faces here. I would just like to get your name, and this will be really a chat of what I want, and not to be too formal. Just get to know each other. So I think you came in later. What's your name?
Vivian.
Vivian? Okay. Nice to meet you too. What's your
My name is.
Nehemiah?
Yes.
Nehemiah,
Yes.
like that. Okay. Thank you. And yours,
Colby.
Kobe, with a K or C?
C.
C, okay. So as she pronounced my name, and thank you so much for the efforts. My name is spelled Sarai, it's pronounced Sarai. Growing up, my name was always British. So I was the kid going, oh, no, that's me coming. That's my name being pulled up, because there's a lot of hesitation. And I am a product of public education school. So I went to a Title I school in Walhalla. And when I was growing up in my community, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me that were teaching. But a lot of my mentors were educators and they were in the public system. And that was okay. And I had a lot of educators that supported me throughout my journey in high school. When I was growing up, I was very not wanting to embrace who I was as my culture, my heritage. I did have a lot of experiences that were not very positive, growing up in rural South Carolina, but that kept me going. So as we speak today, there's a lot of stories here that everybody can exchange with each other. I think the important thing is, are we really listening? So one of the skills that I learned through my undergrad was active listening. At the core of my program was human services programs. So as I mentioned to you, resilience is going to be my bigger topic, but I'm grateful that I'm going to be sharing my story with all of you. As I enter into high school, I grew up from a daughter from immigrant parents. So both of my parents have 3rd grade and 2nd grade education level. They've been in this country for the past 40 years. And their goal was education was the route. Just as long as you finish high school, you're set. Well, that was about 16 years ago when I graduated from high school. And I knew that graduating from high school was not going to be it. I went straight into manufacturing. So I worked as an operator. I did a lot of products for companies that were healthcare. And then I decided that I needed to pursue more because I was in positions where I wanted to learn more. And I think that's the beauty of being a lifelong learner. Your students now, you will continue to be learners in other capacities at work, out in the field, if you do field work. And when I say field work, that means actually, for example, for me, going out in the community. Right now, one of my good community members here, leader, Amirab, is in the crowd. She is a bilingual community health worker, and she's in the back there supporting me as well. She motivates me to continue doing the work that I do. Let me pause there for a minute. I just want to get a feel of what kind of background of people that want to pursue their degree in here. I've heard so far health science, statistics. That was a new one for me, and I think I learned a little bit more of what that would look like. But if Colby, what's your
Computer science.
what was it?
Computer science.
Computer science, okay. And how about you?
Animal and vet science.
Animal and vet science, okay.
Business administration.
Business administration, health science, statistics, okay. A little bit of a lot of things here that could be useful, obviously, in your workforce when you go into that. Just like all of you, I am a student right now as well. I'm actually taking training at the Public School of Arnold of Health at the University of South Carolina. As a matter of fact, the training that I'm taking is virtual, but there's an in-person component. I have to do 80 hours of community service outreach. And that component is actively on my list that I'm already doing. But that is to get me to the next level to pursue my master's in public health policy, and also build and support the workforce of community health workers in South Carolina. So there's a lot of things that I'm still trying to figure things out, and that's going to be okay. I'm not embarrassed to share my age. I'm 33. I do have a child who will be 10 in a couple days on March 14th. And one of the things that I asked her when we were to school, I said, hey, what would you like me to share with the students? Because I'm gonna talk to students. So I was getting advice from my 10-year-olds. And she said, ask them if they know what an oxalotl is. Okay, so does anybody know what an oxalotl is? Have you heard of it before? Go ahead.
It's like a little
Yep.
creature and it looks like a lizard, but it lives undersea. It has like this weird thing sticking out the side of it.
That's exactly. I think I heard somebody, was that virtual? Did somebody?
Those things are awesome. My kids absolutely love them and they're adorable.
Oh, that's awesome. I can hear. Okay. This is new technology for me that I've seen. So I'm gonna be, my inner child's gonna come out. I'm like, oh. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, that's exactly how my daughter actually taught me that. She did a project at school and oxalotl was the animal. And I said, honey, I don't know. I didn't even know what that was. She's like, well, ask the students that. I'm like, okay. So I promised her that I would. So thank you. But yes, that creature, what I learned from it too is that it can grow its own parts, I think, when it comes to their prey. And maybe somebody can fact check that too, to have some credible sources. But I thought it was very interesting. And that sparked me to continue wanting to explore and learn more. I bring that up because education, I feel at the core is going to be so important. And that's something that nobody can take away from you and your experiences. So going back to the journey of continuing my education and the resilience, when I was pursuing my undergrad at Anderson University, I was taking a course called How to Be an Effective Policy Advocate. I did not know what this course was going to entail, but I knew that I was reading that textbook, and that was my only textbook that I read from the front to the end. I was like, wow. When I was pursuing that, that was one of my core classes. One of the assignments was get to know your elected officials. So that question prompt curiosity then prompt to get engaged. So what did I do? I did what my professor said, get to know your elected officials, who represent you. That's exactly, then I started questioning that. Who represents me? And I'm just thinking in my community of Valhalla, a population of 4,300 people. I wasn't thinking even higher up than that. I was just like, who represents me? So that's when I started being very curious, and I started attending my city council meetings. I attended my city council meetings for a year before I even decided to pursue anything. As a matter of fact, I was just curious to attend. It was interesting because, and a little sad, because I didn't see any other community members there, except for the department heads or staff members who have to be there to report, and also the newspaper, the media, and just myself. And I thought, okay, this is interesting. Then I started getting to know my representative, my mayor, my elected officials, and they were talking about things that you wouldn't think that it would be conversations like, is the trash being picked up at a neighborhood? What is the impact of the sewer if there is not appropriate maintenance on it? Our greatest revenue source right now, which is our enterprise account, is water. So we sell water. That's how the city makes money. And that also includes other ways that taxpayers get the return on investment being inside the city. So these questions started prompting. I was like, wow, I'm over here thinking, how can I have access to all this information if I don't engage? So I like to say that I am currently participating in my local government, because each and every one of you here and people that are listening virtually can also participate. And I also noticed that my elected officials were accessible. And if I needed to share a concern to them, that's when I have the opportunity, or as we've been taught, write a letter to your senator, send them this. But my whole goal was, I don't even know who represents me. So that journey was interesting because during my undergrad, I decided that I was going to run for office as I was taking this course. And I was like, okay, I was actually looking for someone to represent me and to support them in their campaign. That was my goal. Then when I spoke to my mentor, Dr. Bickford, rest in peace, he passed away 2 years ago. He said, he was a retired psychologist actually, and he learned and spoke 5 languages. And he was not from Walhalla, he moved to live in Walhalla. So I thought, one of his words that still resonate with me is do what you fear the most. And what I feared was going out, putting myself out there. I said, I'm still learning, and I'm over here going to run a grassroots campaign and talk to people, which wasn't a problem for me. I like reaching out to individuals and figure out what's going on. But I also noticed the challenges that we're going to face mentally. I didn't feel like I was prepared. As a matter of fact, politics has never been an interest of mine personally and professionally. I think I've only gained so much knowledge because of my lived experience of actually participating. When we were watching the countdown of the numbers and the voters, and we were going to have the final say, my mentor, Dr. Bickford, who said, do what you fear the most, he said, I'm afraid you're going to win. He said, I'm afraid you're going to win. And I said, well, aren't we in it to win it? You know, I was being very motivated, but then he said, because he was seeing it at the long picture. He was a retired psychologist, very multicultural. I'm in rural South Carolina, in a little community, and I'm still in my undergrad. So that means I haven't even finished college yet. And he was saying, I'm afraid you're going to win. He was basically saying this is going to be just yet another burden, another task, and you are academically capable of finishing your degree. So he said, I don't want you to sabotage your degree due to other commitments. And here you are, and I'm afraid you're going to win. And he was my mentor, and I see that now, what he was referring to, but that goes back to the challenges. I continued and pursued my undergrad. It wasn't easy, you know. That means my commitment started, I had to be at city council at meetings were 3 to 4 hours. But that brought me back to what my strength is. And I'm gonna bring that back about the resilience. So I actually looked this up because I'm all about, well, what does the definition mean on what we have here? And this is what it says. Resilience is the capacity to withstand, and that's highlighted for me, withstand, or to recover quickly from difficulties, in other words, toughness, the ability or of a substance or object to spring back into shape. So I always think of a rubber band. When you shift it, it loops and it shoots, but then it goes back to its flexibility, right? So that's exactly what was happening with me, that I was withholding and pushing through challenges and obstacles. And that still is happening to me today in the world of politics. I gained 4 years of lived experience, and I feel like I can humbly say that I probably received my bachelor's degree in political science. And somebody has said, well, where did you go to school for that? Well, Walhalla City Council, that's my credibility behind that. And honestly, a lot of it was positive because I spoke to a lot of poli-sci. I think that's the short version of it. Students, and they come out very discouraged. I came in very naive. I came in very optimistic. But being a woman in rural South Carolina, and obviously we talked about this with a couple of students, minority, right? I'm already categorized as a young, my age, female, and then a woman of color and Hispanic Latino. Those are already characters that already exist in me. So a quick short story about when I was canvassing and I was talking to the community, that was not, when I engaged the community, that's the first thing some of the community members said to me, like, well, you're young, you're female, and you're Hispanic. So I don't know how you're gonna represent us if that's what you are. And I said, well, I wanna make sure that our parks are safe. I wanna make sure that we can at least consider transportation. Those are the areas that I would like to talk, but that was an educational conversation opportunity. I could have approached it differently, but and not just disengage and say, oh, and get offended. And yes, of course, there's words that people would say sometimes that could cause an offense. But I feel that if there's that missed opportunity to engage with them a little bit deeper, then we wouldn't know really what else can be said, right? So we ended up talking a little bit deeper, and we did talk about those areas that I was advocating for. And at the end of that conversation, he actually helped give out letters and everything, knock on doors. So it was very challenging to put myself out there and knowing in some areas and in some conversations, I was not going to be accepted. And that was okay. For me, that was okay, but it wasn't okay as we move forward. And at the end, I think there's like a 30, 40-year gap between my colleagues on city council. So 30, 40 years is a big gap. And sometimes those conversations happen in a very positive way that I think we're both learning from each other because we're in that space. And when I say we're in that space, because we're in a governmental role, we all have a different perspective. And I think I mentioned to Zoe how I didn't realize laws and policy are really made by people. The people that represent you there and the information that they're getting, where's those information coming from? Where's the outlet from? And also what I'm realizing now that I'm studying is data and statistics are going to be really important to bring it into the conversation when policies are being created or laws as well. So I find that very interesting because that's something that I never thought about. And I was like, okay, so it is important to have these conversations, even though they can be really tough and difficult. Mentally, they can actually put you in a position where it's very discouraging, actually. I remember coming home after a long meeting and just crying, because I didn't even know if I should be here. I started questioning my existence in that space. And that made me feel very sad. And that also gave me the strength to push forward. So that challenge for me helped me move forward, but it's really tough. And I think that's the beauty of resilience. Because as you start discovering your strength and your power within you, that can be taken away from anyone. And you have to be able to say, yes, I'm going to navigate that. Or, that might be challenging right now, but let me put that aside. Let me put more energy on this and then move forward to the next task. One of the things that happened after I ended my 4th year, December. So I think we got sworn in on January 2nd of this year. So we didn't have a government or nobody who was officially sworn in for like a whole day. January 1st was a whole day where previous council has already put their hat down. I worked with my former mayor. He was a mayor for 12 years. And I had the privilege to work with him for 4 years out of those 12. And for one day, I remember driving in my city. I'm like, wow, everything's so peaceful. Oh, wow, there's no, like, in my mind, like, I know if there was like a major crisis and we would have to get sworn in, we'll have to call the judge, get sworn in, let's go right then and there, wherever all of us can make a quorum, and then pursue to conduct business, right? And that January 1st, I was driving around my city and I was like, I was calling the current mayor that was going to be sworn in with me. His name is Mr. Tim Hall. And I said, hey, Tim, you know how peaceful it is in Walhalla? I haven't had any phone calls, no complaints. Everything is running smooth. And he said, well, don't jinx it because I don't think our judge is local nearby. And, we have to improvise. I was like, okay. So for a moment, that was my only moment where, I wasn't officially sworn in to serve my next 4 years until January 2nd, but it was a moment of reflection. And I want to share that with all of you, that reflection is going to be so important. So you really have to pause. And I felt that was a pause for me because I knew the next day, I was going back to work, first of all. And that afternoon, I had to change out of my scrubs and my uniform and put in my clothes to get sworn in front of the public and be put back in that position. It's a very honor and humbling position, but it also comes with a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. And I think as you develop in your career, health science, statistics, animal, I think that's what my daughter wants to study. She wants to study in the animal field at vet. You're going to have those pauses of, is this really what I want to do? And it's okay to say, maybe this is not where I want to do. I was in the healthcare system for 7 years and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. That's why I wanted to be in the nurse field and grow myself. And I grew in the healthcare system for 7 years. different positions and titles, but I ended up being in business administration and I ended up being a financial counselor. And I did not know that was going to shift my career then to leave the medical side and then just go into human services. So case management, social work. So what I started doing was reflecting, and that I think it has a lot to do, and if you're asking those questions to yourself. A lot of reflection, I speak out loud to myself so I can know what's going on. So like, is this where I want to be? I'm not getting a lot of, I don't feel happy doing this. Maybe this is not where I need to be. So I decided that I knew I didn't want to be a doctor and that I wanted to pursue something else. Those pauses in those moments of reflection will really, really feel like confused. Like, okay, but I put a lot of time to this and now I'm not gonna do that. But if you start reflecting where you're spending most of your time, whether you're not getting paid and you're volunteering and you're happy and you feel like you are growing, then that is a moment of reflect to see what can I do in my career to say that that's where I want to head to. I never saw myself, people would ask me, oh, you're a politician. I'm like, actually, I'm your atypical politician and maybe the most resourceful one that I'm trying to find ways to financially stay sustainable, and also go by the ethics of what's out there, right? We have the South Carolina ethics where we have to report. And just like everybody else trying to figure out the career, the last thing I would like to be identified was a career politician. I think we hear that all the time, and we probably have some that have been told they're career politicians. But what I'm getting back to is the challenges and the resilience that are gonna happen are gonna go hand in hand. So resilience is great, right? When someone says, oh, you have such great resilience. But when they say that, you have to think, well, because you've gone through so many challenges. And those challenges are actually growth. And those growth is a development. And then it becomes a skill. And then it becomes a strength. And then you got to figure out, okay, do I become my own boss, entrepreneur, right? So that's an area also that I'm so excited to hear that is coming. But redirecting this back to finding that power within you and then using that power to really take a leap. I recently took a career shift and like I said, I'm going back to school and I do want to pursue my master's. Now, my daughter who's 10, I said, honey, I might go back to school. She's like, oh, are you sure, Mom? Like, can you wait for a minute? And I was like, yes, I know, we'll talk about it because there's a lot of commitment and sacrifice that comes with wanting to pursue more. But once you do that and you start challenging your way, the power that you start developing within yourself and then start sharing it with others is called power sharing. But really what you can use it to in power sharing is the impact in your community. So Merab, who is here today, we do a lot of power sharing. So Merab is a community leader. She migrated from Mexico about 20 years. So she's lived in Oconee County for 25 years. She is growing her English. And one of the areas that I know that we can both exchange is the conversation. So I need to strengthen my Spanish, which by the way, that is not my first language. It was English, but my language that was spoken at home was Spanish. Because of that, I was put in ESL classes and a lot of advocacy that I didn't have at that point. My parents were not educated or informed, so a lot of it, there was gaps. But I'm very thankful because the only reason I was able to maintain my Spanish is through conversations. And if I didn't realize this now, I would have told my grandpa, so you had a no speaking other language but Spanish policy in your household. Because we were coming, he's like, don't speak any other language but Spanish. And I didn't understand that. I was like, but I'm learning English at school. Why can't I speak it here? But see, my grandparents didn't know how to articulate that. And it felt I'm almost discouraged. And I was like, okay, but now being bilingual has really helped. So I really appreciate the language aspect of that. And if those of you who are pursuing to speak another language, please consider it because that is a skill that cannot be taken if you don't, obviously continue practicing because I cannot freestyle translate forms. I have to really use my brain to do that. But that's one area where I'm learning from Merab. Merab is teaching me how to do that. And the impact that is happening is that now we're teaching our community. So we're teaching our community to grow and embrace that accent and learn and encourage to continue speaking English. Because, you know, English is the language, but that doesn't mean it's the only language. I took French in high school, so je parle français un peu. But I didn't kept it, so it's just very little. And now I have a mentor. She's one of my constituents too, but she's a French teacher. And now every time I go see her, that she puts me on the spot and she starts talking to me in French. And then I said, okay, I need to brush up on that. And that goes down to the power of resilience. And I'm not sure where we are with time, but I do want to have a little Q&A. So if anybody have questions, but the power of resilience really goes back to you. So being resilient really will require a lot of you moving forward, and your story will be very unique. So a lot of resilience will come from your experiences. Now, can I be an expert on a subject? Perhaps, but the experiences cannot be taken away as well. The experiences that I've gained in my 4 years in political science, or in this case, being an active member in my local government, I have gained so much that even the discussions that were happening and those that experience are real. And even though I can share them with other members, perhaps there is maybe a little bit more understanding. You know, when you said that, it was very sensitive. I wish that was said differently, but this is how it made me feel. And then when there's a clear communication of that, then there's a reciprocated respect in return. And I think I've learned through that by facing those challenges. So at the end, the power resilient lies on you. And I continue to find my resilience by tackling those challenges and obstacles. And I'll just wrap it around to say, finding your purpose, finding your power within you. And now my next 4 years of government, I would be doing what I wanted to do at the beginning, which I didn't have the skills, was best practice. How do I put everything that I learned for the past 4 years, because I did go to training at the Municipal Association of South Carolina. And how do I put all those 4 years of knowledge now into best practice? And these next 4 years, that's all it's gonna be: best practice, action. And now with the new leadership that we have, we are gonna move in a direction of more cultural awareness and heritage. I mean, we do all of those celebrations in my city right now. We've been celebrating Oktoberfest, which is a German heritage, for the past 45 plus years. So I said, okay, that's great. We can continue that. How do we continue bringing more education and information to the community? So I'll leave it to that. And I'm excited just to hear if anybody has questions in the audience.
No question, but I wanted to just commend you on not allowing where you came from and who you were before to determine who you are now in your future ahead of time. Yeah, just like you said, being resilient and enduring and trucking forward.
Yes.
I admire that.
Do
Thank
you
you for sharing
identify,
that.
do you identify with her, are you seeing the
Oh.
commonality?
Yes, just not coming from a family of politics, not coming from a family who went to college, not coming from a family who knew English, just a lot of things that you didn't let that deter you from pursuing those things, and you just kept going forward, and I just admire it.
Well, thank you. You know, that resilience can go back to the challenges that everybody faces in their realm, right, of the environment. So I appreciate you. Any questions virtually? But or questions or curiosity?
Questions or comments? Yeah, when you ask them, do they have any questions or comments?
The staff, the adults here, yeah.
I'm Laneika Adams, director of the Anderson campus.
Okay.
But I was just curious if you could share with all of us, there may be some of our students or some of us that may have an interest at some point in the future in running for office. So what advice would you give to the young people or us about the good, the bad, the things you want to do, not do, just any advice for anyone thinking about running for a political office?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. The first thing that comes to mind is reach out. So really reaching out, like for me, it was reaching out to my elected officials, but I never had the initial thought process that I would ever be on the other side. honestly, it was actually encouraged, but really by higher education. So reaching out, really finding what is happening in your community that you care about so much. That I know politics, I mean, who would think that food would be so polarized at some point, right? Or creating a dog park was gonna be so political, right? So you gotta find a way to really look at your community. And I would encourage you that, like, go to your parks, figure out your library. These are communities or spaces that you can probably find out even more deeper of what your connection is going to be. So I would say reaching out definitely to your local, because that's the biggest impact. I mean, when we think about politics too, I have a lot of people that send me information about national politics, and I'm like, okay, I'm not sure if I can answer that right now. You know, I'm trying to figure out why this neighborhood in my community trash is not being picked up at certain times of the weeks that was said that we're gonna be picked up. I think it goes back to your impact. What is your impact that you're gonna feel that you can bring to your community? And your community can be anywhere where you travel and you move, you know. In my experience, when I was actually finishing up college, I said, I'm leaving Walhalla. I'm leaving. I was looking at bigger cities and I had no desire. Like I didn't, and it wasn't something that I saw myself. And I see myself in those positions because I wasn't seeing someone else either in those positions that I felt like I can go to. So a lot of it came by just being courageous. And I feel like that could be something that you can actually tap into.
I'll just put my hand for a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I heard you talk about, kind of, when you go into a situation and it's something positive such as food or dog parks or, you know, having some positive impact on the community. You may wins and not see different outcomes or different viewpoints or negatives or positives that may come from it. For instance, repaving and beautifying an area. We think that's going to make everyone happy, but then it could cause some uncertainty with residents and wondering, hey, are they wanting to take over my properties or some other, you know, thoughts and you know, valid, you know, concerns. Is there a process by which now, like, that you consider things? Not that, I'm just saying, a lot of times it's hard because you're saying, or I would say, I'm implementing this awesome thing that everybody's going to love. But to, you know, is there a way that you approach things to say, hey, what is a positive, you know, pros, what are the positive cons, you know, for this thing? Is it worth pursuing? Is there a process by which you approach things?
Yes, and I think the process, thank you for that question, all develops as you go out in the community. So what we were doing was community active listening. So before we actually initiate a project, we also want to make sure that it's something that the community actually needs. Because a lot of programs can come into place when you develop a new, let's say, roadmap for this potential, let's just say, green space. But if the community doesn't feel like that is something that also is going to impact them, then there's a miscommunication or misalignment. So what I like to do, and I think this is where MedApp comes in a lot and why I'm very, very much passionate in supporting the workforce of community health workers, is because we want to organize those community listening sessions. So I would definitely start thinking of that process step about organizing what they call town halls, but you can call them in a way that you potluck gatherings, you know, call them in the way that also your community members are going to reciprocate that this is not something to get from you, take away. It's more of, we need your input, like we need your help. Like if this is not gonna work, then maybe that's not the direction. And I think that's where the advocacy comes into place. So creating those organizing, and by default, I didn't realize I was advocating at age 9 or 10, when my mom would take me to the doctor and say, hey, what is she saying? You know, I was being a translator. And then when she would take me to the DMV to translate for her, or hand me the papers in English and say, can you translate this? So I didn't realize that's what I was doing and advocating, representing my mom at such a young age. But as I developed the skills, organizational structure is right now what my new leadership town council members are doing, because communication is going to be key. So obviously having a process where you are including your communication. What is your style in communicating? Right now, technology is being a part of Walhalla. We are now having videos where we can speak, and our mayor is currently leading that, and he expects that all the council members who are chairing a department will share to the public what's going on. Now, that puts back accountability to the representative because the staff members are going to continue doing the work. The policies may change, and that needs to be communicated. So definitely processing all of that, that takes time, but when you have support from your community, your projects can go very, very far. So yes, thank you for the question.
I have an online question from Mary Ann. You mentioned about your mentors and how helpful they were. What advice would you give to students and how to seek out mentors?
Yes, that's a good question. Being a mentee myself and being asked to be mentor as well, I'm like, well, I'm looking for a mentor too. And somebody's asking me to be a like I need to be also a mentee. So reaching out is going to be the key for me. I met my mentor because I started a volunteer position at the Guardian Ad Litem program when I was pursuing my human service degree. He was already being a GAL, they're called GALs, for 10 years. I was coming into that role and he was the only one that spoke Spanish. And I thought, wow, that was a connection to me. Even though he was white, he was speaking Spanish. And I said, okay, that's cool. I want to know more. And then later I knew he spoke 4 other languages. I'm like, wow. So reaching out, and that's one thing he told me, my mentor, he said, you're not afraid to reach out. And I said, no, I'm not, but it is a little fearful sometimes, you know, like I want to reach out to this person, but I don't know how. And I think that at the end, you got to really step into that and say, you know, it's okay if there is some sort of bandwidth that was tied and they couldn't be your mentor. But reaching out would definitely be something that I would encourage everyone, you know, or ask that trusted person to help you identify that mentor. Now, a lot of mentors are also like, because there's a time, right? There's a relationship building that you're doing with this mentor. So definitely making sure that your mentors can also help you to the next level. And like I said, he's no longer here, but I think about him all the time. And he really impacted my life. And at the end, I was like, where can I find another John? And I'm still searching for that. But I think inside, John lives in my spirit.
You're becoming John.
Huh?
I said you're becoming John.
John.
That's me.
Yeah, so yes, I would advise that. Just reach out, talk to your, I mean, I think about guidance counselors at some point, you know, depending on where you're navigating and what environment. So your ecosystem really will depend on that. Thank you. Well, who is hungry and how are we with time? I'm looking at the students here.
Yeah, hearing from what you're saying,
Yes.
it makes me think about when people say you want like a hero or a savior, and sometimes you have to become the hero or savior that you want. And that's what I'm seeing, hearing you say.
Thank you, yes. And you know, and I'll share this at the end. As I'm growing in the position that I am and trying to use best practice in my local government, there's going to be information that obviously is shared. That's why we have executive sessions to discuss those. And I feel like if those are not open to the public, they have to be announced and all of that. But I think in those spaces where you can actually pull somebody on the side and say, hey, I need to talk to you. And address that, because at the end of the day, it comes down to just a miscommunication. And if it was intentional or unintentional, then addressing that would be very important. So I think what I've learned throughout my time is sometimes those conversations are not with me, and sometimes I have to start those conversations. And it puts me in a position of more growth and development. So being the first is going to take a lot of strength to do that, and also just putting it out there. So reaching out to people that you probably feel like, well, because you probably would think like, oh, that sounds silly. Why would they pay attention to me? And I think when I talk to other people, they're like, oh, you're an elected official. Yeah. Like, well, you're so easy to talk to. I'm like, well, I want you to feel like you could be easy to talk to other people too. So not to be afraid, but to really, and it goes back to Dr. Bickford, do what you fear the most. So what do you fear the most? And then just do it. So yes, thank you.
So I want to give some closing statements in a moment. I also want to make sure that everybody gets pizza, and I do want to take a picture with everybody. Now, in the chat, make sure that you have put your name. I know that, that you've been told that, but make sure that you put your name and put your, instructor's name in the chat. Also take screenshots, because I know that's what a lot of your instructors are asking for, so that you get credit for this. People here, you can take a picture of where you signed in, you can take, pictures of the guests, things like that to verify and show your instructor that you were here, okay? We also, again, like I said, have that sign-in sheet out there. So I have on the screen up here the 2 additional sessions that are coming up for this semester. I also have this QR code that you can scan so that you can get the app, the campus group app, so that you can see all the events and things that are going on campus, that you can definitely also see these activities up here. So again, as we draw to a close of the session, I want to express my gratitude to each and every one of you, whether you are online or in person. We've had the privilege of hearing from our honored guest and her story, her outstanding dedication to service, advocacy, fostering unity. And she said that she is not she's not really in politics, but she's a servant leader. She's a community servant leader. So that's the way I feel about what she does. And I just want to commend you for that. So let's carry the spirit of today's session forward as we continue, of course, on our journeys, both individual and collectively. Remember that today's session was meant to inspire you to take action, challenge the status quo, and create meaningful connections within your communities. Again, as we part ways, I encourage you to mark your calendars for our upcoming sessions with Maria Morales from the Urban League on April 5th and Dr. Laneika Musalini as she shares insights on thriving financially in college on April 12th. Once again, thank you for your participation, and let's keep the momentum going and make a positive impact on our communities and beyond. Again, stay engaged, inspired, and united. Outstanding. So I want to ask you guys, do you want to take the picture first so you don't have pizza on your mouth?
Yeah, before the sauce on your shirt, right?
And then you can enjoy and get pizza. Yeah, let's get everybody. Yeah. Lisa Garrett, photographer extraordinaire, will tell us what, just listen to her in the workout. It always works.
Let's start out in the.
Yeah.
Okay.